Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Today is going to be for all of you that are not really too into sports or too much sports, because today's video is not going to be sports related in any way, shape, or form. Before I get into what the video is going to be about, I've had a few new subscribers that have joined today, and these are people that I actually went to school with that I have not spoken to or seen in years. So I wanted to let them know that I greatly appreciate them subscribing to the channel, and hopefully you'll tell your friends and family to join as well, because it is mainly sports related and almost everybody likes some kind of sport. But like I said, today's is not going to be sports related, but I'd still like to have your comments on the list. Today is going to be another top 10 video. Before I get into that, you'll see that I'm wearing a Braves hat, and I also have me a Clemson hat. And then when we go on vacation next week, I'm going to try to find me a Kyle Busch hat. That way, when we talk collegiate sports, I'll have me a Clemson hat. I may not talk Clemson, but they're a college team, so it makes sense to wear a Clemson hat when we're talking collegiate sports. When we talk Major League Baseball, I'll wear a Braves hat. And when we talk NASCAR, I'll wear a Kyle Busch hat. And on a day like today, when we're just having a discussion on a top 10 list, I'll just pick, whichever hat I want to wear. It also helps with the videos, because that way, if the sun is shining through the window, through the curtain, it won't reflect off my sexy head. The hat should stop the majority of the feed coming in through the window from the sun. But today's video is going to be another top 10 list. I did two so far. Today is going to be top 10, my opinion, of the all-time best TV comedies. If you have not yet gone back and watched my video on the top 10 all-time snacks, that was not my opinion. That was something I found on the internet. That was based on sales across the country overall. So that was not subjective. That was what I found on the internet. And then last week, I did my opinion on the top 10 wrestlers of all time, and that was just based on in-ring skills and nothing else. Today's is going to be top 10 TV comedies, and just like top 10 wrestlers, it's very subjective, because everybody has their own opinion on what they like in a TV comedy. Some people like the dark comedy, some like the animated comedy, some like the dirty comedy. To me, I just like good, clean family comedy that you can sit back and watch with your kids or your grandkids and not have to worry about what they're going to say. And you don't really see much of that anymore. 99% of today's comedies are dirty and dark and vulgar, and you've got to make sure there's nobody under the age of 14 around before you feel comfortable watching them. And to me, that's not funny. If you've got to be dark or dirty to be funny, you're not funny. Good, clean family comedy is where the true comedy is. And I also wanted to make a quick shout out real quick to Jimmy, one of our wrestling friends. He has made some suggestions on some things that my family and I can do on vacation next week. If you have any suggestions, like I've already said, please feel free to comment on the YouTube page or my Facebook page or my wife's Facebook page, and give us some kind of what you would like to see as far as a restaurant review or a motel review for the one that we're staying in, or anything like that. It can be a shop review or just some overall good family fun. Anything like that, please feel free to let us know. But on to the video. Now, you're really only going to hear me mention two comedies that are, I guess you could say, modern day comedies. The rest of them are going to be the older comedies, because that, to me, is what good comedy really was. Today's comedies, I just don't care for them. And then I'll mention a few of the so-called honorable mentions that barely missed the top 10. Number 10 on my list is The Middle, one of the two modern day comedies you'll hear on my list. The Middle was around for, I believe, 7 seasons, just got canceled in 2019. It was the Heck family. The kids were Axel, Sue, and Brick. I've always thought Brick was a great name for a TV character, but that was a great TV show. Number 9 was Full House. We all know Full House. You had the Olsen twins, and then you had, of course, the daddy was Danny Tanner, which was Bob Saget, and then you had John Stamos, who played the uncle on the show. The kids were DJ and Stephanie, and then, like I said, the Olsen twins played Michelle. It was a great, great family comedy that was around, started in the early 90s and went to the late 90s. John Stamos hit it big on that show, and now 25 years later, he still looks exactly the same, in my opinion. Number 8 on my list is an older comedy called Happy Days. Now, if you recall, Happy Days was funny only because you had Arthur Fonzarelli, who was Henry Winkler in real life, but his name on the show was Arthur Fonzarelli, but they just called him Fonz. But he would snap his fingers, and like 25 women would just show up, and it would be amazing if that could happen in real life. So that was just good, clean family comedy. Number 7 on my list is Seinfeld. Now, the funny thing about Seinfeld, well, not funny in a funny way, but funny in a crazy way, was that I've watched Jerry Seinfeld's stand-up comedy, and to me, he's like watching paint dry. He's like watching grass grow. He's just not funny at all doing his stand-up comedy. But the TV show, I thought, was excellent. And the funny part about that show was, it was like the only show ever that it had no plot, no twist, no storyline, no nothing. Each episode was just random stuff. I mean, there was never any meaning behind any of them, but it was a funny, funny show. And number 6 on my list is another old comedy, Good Times. That came on back in the mid to late 70s. And the funny thing about that show was you had Jimmy Walker, who on the show played J.J. Evans. He was that tall, skinny kid that might have weighed 105 pounds, but he thought he was God's gift to women. And it made that show funny, especially when the phone would ring. He'd pick it up and say, "Ain't you glad you let your fingers do the walking? Because you've got kid Dynamite doing the talking." And that just made that show hysterical. Now, I think in the final season, the dad actually left the show due to a contract dispute, and it just wasn't the same after that. Number 5 on my list is another comedy that actually still comes on, The Goldbergs. Now, that to me is a funny, funny show, especially the oldest kid trying to be so athletic, and he's just not athletic in any way, shape, or form. That's a funny show. If you have not watched the Goldbergs, I encourage you to go back and watch at least 2 or 3 episodes of the Goldbergs. Like I said, it actually still comes on. Number 4 on my list is Andy Griffith. If you've ever watched Andy Griffith and you don't think Barney Fife is funny, of course, Barney Fife is Don Knotts in real life, but that character made that show. If you don't think Barney Fife is funny, then you don't have a funny bone in your body that works, because that man was hysterical. Without Barney Fife on the show, honestly, truly, the show probably never would have worked. Number 3 on my list is Hee Haw. I actually was going back last night after work watching some old Hee Haw footage, because that's another show that was just good, clean, family comedy. You could sit down with 50 people in a room and not have to worry about anything they're going to do or say on that show. All you had to do was make sure you had something to drink around, because you were going to laugh and you were going to choke as you were watching it. That TV show has been off the air now for 40 years or longer, and it's still funny to go back and watch that show. Number 2 on my list is Three's Company. I always love Three's Company, and the funny thing about that show was it was on for 9 seasons, and it's the only show I've ever seen to where every single episode revolved around a misunderstanding. Either somebody read a note wrong, or something broke down, or somebody called, left a voicemail on the phone, and they misunderstood what it said. Every single episode was about a misunderstanding, but they were all so funny. Of course, John Ritter played Jack on the show, and then the aforementioned Don Knotts from Andy Griffith came on about season 4 of Three's Company and become their landlord, Mr. Furley, and he was just as funny on there as Mr. Furley as he was on Andy Griffith when he was playing Don Knotts. And of course, you also had Joyce DeWitt playing Janet. She was great on the show. The whole cast was funny. The whole show was funny. The whole concept was funny. That was good, clean family comedy. And number one on my list is Family Matters. I don't know if I'll ever watch a show that'll even come close to, in my opinion, being compared to Family Matters. That will always be my favorite all-time TV show. And the funny thing about Family Matters is most people, if you ask them, you watch Family Matters, their response is going to be, what is that? But if you say Steve Urkel, they'll say, oh, yeah. Most people actually know the show for Steve Urkel, even though the show was actually called Family Matters. Of course, Reginald VelJohnson played Carl on the show, and Steve Urkel is Jaleel White in real life. He's done some few things since Family Matters, but nothing has ever come close to the character on that show. And the funny thing about that character was it was supposed to only be a recurring role that was only on the show for once, maybe twice per season. But he did so good that after 2 or 3 episodes, everybody fell in love with him, and he was pretty much on every single episode from that point forward. And then, of course, in the last 2 years, when he become a grown person, he become Stefan Urkel, and he would be Stefan Urkel one episode and Steve Urkel one episode, and he was great doing that as well. That's just a funny show. I'm sure everybody has watched it. If you have not watched it, you need to go back and watch a few episodes. It will definitely tickle your funny bone, especially with Reginald VelJohnson and Jaleel White always going back and forth, pretending like they hate each other. That was good, clean family comedy. And a couple that just missed my list are Mama's Family, Mike and Molly, Married with Children, and Step by Step. I loved all those shows as well, but they weren't quite top 10 material. I don't care for the modern day comedies, not just because they're not clean, but most of the modern day comedies, they have a narrator in the background trying to explain to you what's going on, and I just don't care for that. I like the older ones where it's just 25, 30 minutes of good, clean family fun, not no narrator in the background. That's just my opinion, but I just don't care for that. Now, before we sign off of here, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll wrap it up with our dad joke of the day. I try to give you a dad joke every day to give everybody a good giggle for the day. How do you get the attention of a country girl? A tractor. And that's going to do it for this video. Please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, as I said. And get on there and let me know if you agree with my list of the top 10 or if you have a whole different top 10. Until next time, it's Ref Brendan saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.